Welcome to Basketball on Figueroa, the only podcast breaking down everything happening with the Lakers, Clippers, and Sparks. I'm your host, Edwin Garcia, and joining me today is my co-host, Darian Vaziri, aka Dime Dropper. Dime, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm excited. We've been teasing this for about a week now. We've collabed on several things, including the winning time spaces the day after the show. But this is a real thing that we're doing consistently. The only podcast talking about every pro basketball team in LA, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, I mean, the feeling's mutual on this side as well. Obviously, like you said, we talked about winning time on Twitter Spaces. That's been a blast. And we've been kicking this idea around since like the spring of this year, right before the NBA playoffs. And we were like, it's just kind of a lot to try to, kick off when, NBA playoffs, it's kind of our playoffs as well, right? More attention, focus, trying to like, cover both teams as best as we can. So we're like, okay, let's maybe, bring this idea back in the fall. And now we're here. And, I'm just so excited to embark on this journey with you. This is episode 0. And I'm just excited to kind of kick things off. So being that the reason why we're calling it episode 0, at least for me, is just, hey, let's kind of let everyone know who we are. There's going to be some people who watch this who only know you. There's some people who watch this who only know me. And now they can kind of, get to know both co-hosts. And then, we can really kick things off with episode 1 right as the season begins next week. So before we get into kind of the main topics, I thought it'd be good for us to kind of just introduce ourselves and kind of talk about that. So, I'll go first. My name's Edwin Garcia, aka eCreates88, like on all social platforms. And I've been covering the Lakers for Silver Screen and Roll for a couple years now. And I've been covering the Sparks for Swish Appeal for a couple years now as well. And for me, my journey kind of doing this kind of coverage and stuff started like in 2019. And I really took it seriously in 2020 funny enough, after the Lakers won the title, that's when I jumped in terms of like coverage of the team. That's when I kind of put my hand in the ring and kind of said, hey, I think I'm going to kind of go for this. Let me see what happens here. So we can even talk about how we know each other and all that. But the funny thing is, Dime, I've actually never talked to you about kind of how you got into this and why you do what you do. So why don't you tell the audience and myself, like, how'd you get into this? How'd you end up doing the work that you do now?
Yeah, well, just fell in love with the game of basketball, just being born and raised in LA. And, LA dominates basketball. Basketball dominates in LA, I should say. It's the number one sport. It's not even close. And I got into watching the Clippers and the Lakers every single night. I was a Clipper fan because at the time it was right after Shaq had left and the Lakers had Kobe and a bunch of decent average players, to be generous. And the Clippers had a really good squad. Elton Brand, Sam Cassell, and that team with the cheaper tickets, it allowed me to go to more games and really got me connected to the team. And so I knew around middle school, high school, I wanted to do something involving sports or media or definitely basketball. And went to college, went to Cal State Northridge out here in the Valley my first year. Then went to the University of Massachusetts Amherst for 3 years, best years of my life. Majored in journalism, graduated during COVID. So it was really hard to get a job at that point. And I just started my own channel, Dime Dropper, to talk about the NBA and its history and how it's evolved, but also to be an LA sports content creator. And of course, my channel spans all NBA teams in terms of the big picture and the playoffs. I'll talk about every team, but throughout the season, I really have a hyper focus on the Lakers and the Clippers, and then occasional other LA sports teams when I go to their games and stuff like that when they're in the playoffs. But basketball is really my level of expertise. And then because of that, I got the Locked On Clippers job with the Locked On Podcast Network. That's 5 days a week for the LA Clippers, the only podcast that does that. So that's me right now. Dime Dropper and Locked On Clippers is my consistent work.
Yeah, and you've been killing it on there. I love the promos you do there. You really have a lot of fun with it. And yeah, like you said, it's having someone that hyper focused is really good for the audience to know, okay, I'm not doing all that work. I'm not watching every game or whatever, but this guy is. And that's kind of how I describe it to people who don't like know or kind of what my approach is. I kind of look at it like almost like I'm a basketball mechanic, where it's like you take your car to the mechanic because they're going to fix the stuff and kind of do that work, and you can just enjoy the car. And I think about that with like the Lakers. Like, I do everything, watch everything, watch every game, write about every game, listen to every pre and post game. That way, a casual fan can just be like, "Hey, Edwin, what time's the game or how are they doing?" And I'm like, I got all your answers because I'm as locked in as humanly possible. And maybe other people can't do that because they have, kids and jobs and work, or they're not really locked in as much. I'm like, I'm locked in, so you don't have to be as much, and you can just use me as a resource to be like, okay, let me help you kind of enjoy this even more by giving you the answers. So yeah, I really like that about your approach there, and that's kind of how why we're doing this, right? Because you're more on the Clipper side, I'm definitely on the Lakers side, and now we can kind of combine it and have those conversations on what's happening there. We talk about being neighbors in that tunnel there, in that basement there at Crypto. So I kind of thought it would be cool to start with the stadium, right? Like our thoughts on Crypto.com Arena used to be called Staples, of course, and kind of what your feeling is there. So when discussing that, can you tell me for you when I say Crypto.com Arena and what it means to have your team play in there? What's your feeling about that?
This is actually a really interesting question because a lot of Clipper fans are like, we can't get out, can't wait to get out of that hellhole and to share that building and all this stuff. And I know the players are excited to get out of there. But for me, man, the Staples Center or the Crypto.com Arena is my nostalgic arena. Like being a guy that's only 25 years old, that's where I went to see my first game. That's where I fell in love with attending NBA games. That's where I saw my first hockey game. That's where I've seen the Kings put up their first two banners, where I've seen Kobe dominate, where I've seen the best years in Clipper history. I always say there's only a couple buildings I know better than Staples Center: my house and my grandma's house. Besides that, that's the only buildings I know better than Staples Center because legitimately, I have been to that arena so many times, over 100, because Clipper games are so affordable. I've been to my Laker games here and there. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but I think it's between 8 to 15 games in my entire life, but it's where I fell in love with attending NBA games. So it's definitely going to be weird and sad for me personally because I have an emotional attachment to the arena. But for the Clippers team success, and there are certain levels of convenience that we're going to have at Intuit Dome. Of course, the innovations to the stadium, but also not being third priority in terms of scheduling. The you guys and the Kings are always going to be ahead of the Clippers in terms of priority, especially with the asking to go to a new arena or leaving the Staples Center. So that I'm looking forward to. The last thing I'm not looking forward to is having to go on the 405 more to Inglewood during games as opposed to the 10 straight shot down, easy access to the freeway after the game. That is going to be a nightmare because we've seen after SoFi how that area can get after
Right.
games. So I'm actually on the more sentimental, kind of sad to be leaving side. I also think it's dope that Staples Center has two NBA teams. We're the only building in NBA history to host two NBA teams primarily in their arena. So I think that's awesome. And I think the Staples Center has a great, hardworking staff. And it's going to be an end of an era, man. 25 years sharing the stadium.
Yeah, end of an era indeed. And then you throw in, like you said, you throw in the Sparks in there and then the Kings in there. Yeah, it's a very special place. For me, the way I describe Crypto.com Arena is it's home. Like it feels like home for me. That's where my team plays. That's where I see the marquee up front back when I had the Staples, center, logo. And even now, every time I see it, like I walk by it and I just a big smile comes to my face. I walk up, heading towards the front and going to so many, I've been to so many Sparks games, a good amount of Laker games as well, and planning on going on more this year. Yeah, it's home. It just feels to me it's home, and kind of like your first home. Depending on how you lived your life as a kid. If your family like kind of came up and improved or moved, right? That first home, you have nostalgia for it, even if technically it might not be the best home you've lived in. It's yours, and that's how I feel. I'm like, Crypto is mine. Does it have the spacing you want? Not really. The location's good. Is it like top amenities? No. Is the billboard and the screen the biggest? No. Are the seats the most comfortable? No. But like it's home. It's there's something beautiful about it. It kind of reminds me of a theater when it's like it's dark and it's red and you see like pictures of all the iconic moments when you walk inside Crypto. For those who haven't ever been, you'll see like Michael Jackson and Lady Gaga and like the Lakers won the title here and here's a picture of it and here's a image of the Sparks winning a title and like there's just so much history and so many great memories. We'll get to that maybe in a little bit, but that's how I feel about it. Do I think it's the most up to date state of the art stadium? No, the Intuit Dome in terms of just like no emotion, just what's better. Obviously, it's going to be better. It's like a new car versus an old car, right? It's going to have the tip top of everything. But yeah, that's my relation with Crypto. I love it. It's home. It's especially for the Lakers. It's really like we feel like it's home, even though we're also renting, just like you guys are, which people sometimes forget about. But it does feel like home. And yeah, I'm happy to be there. But of course, the day will come where everyone probably eventually leaves it, or there's a big remodel, just like there was with the Forum.
I also think though Staples Center is underrated in terms of how nice it actually is. I think the seats are in need of a little refurbishing, but I think it's one of the nicer stadiums too. I mean, it was made in '99. So I know we have a couple of these newer stadiums now, like Orlando's and Sacramento's Golden One Center, and obviously the Intuit Dome's coming, but there's still a lot of stadiums that were opened up in the '90s and opened up in the '80s, some of them, and we still have, Madison Square Garden, like even the
Yeah.
United Center mid '90s, Phoenix early '90s. They had a lot of remodeling and stuff, but the Staples Center is still, I think, in the top half. I don't have the list in front of me, but it's probably in the top half of newer stadiums in the league. And it's actually, I've been to a couple other ones: Washington, Phoenix, Boston, New York. And it's funny because of all those, Staples Center is actually the newest one. So it's actually the nicest NBA stadium I've ever been to, but I haven't
Interesting.
been to any of the newer ones. However, I still think Staples Center is very luxurious and it's still very nice. I think outside it's beautiful. I think the Staples Center font and stuff was nicer though, but it's still
Yeah.
nice. Then on the inside, as you said, it's just so big. That kind of takes your breath away how big it is. And the hallways are nice. And if you go before a game starts, sometimes you can even see a reflection off the floor.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with you too with that. And they are making some, updates and amenities. They're fixing some of the, the seating, especially in like the clubhouse area and those sections. So they're always trying to make adjustments and kind of, give it a little bit of a refresh. It will never be like a new stadium, but trying to give it those updates while they can to kind of keep it modern up to date. And I agree with you. Like I've been to a handful of those stadiums you mentioned, including the United Center back when I used to live in Chicago. And yeah, this is way better than the United Center in my opinion. It has so much more personality and charm than like the United Center to me. Kind of feels kind of plain. There's just like the trophies and Jordan, and which is great. But like once you see that, you're like, okay, let me get to my seat. We're kind of done here. And I feel like, yeah, Crypto's the kind of stadium I would like to be in when no one's in and just like explore and like see all the pictures and like walk through every area. And even from the nosebleeds to the 100s, obviously, I think like the PR section down is probably the ideal. But even the nosebleeds, I've had fun being up there. You look up and see the banners and like it's a different kind of crowd. They're a little bit rowdier, at least in the Laker games. So there's a different energy as well. So yeah, it has a personality. It lives and breathes, and yeah, it's an incredible stadium, and it's our stadium at least for the rest of this year until we uh, go our separate ways. As you're going to be, like you said, in the Intuit Dome. So the main let's get right into the main topic here. Now that we've talked a little bit about the stadium that all the three teams play in, I wanted to talk a little bit about the state of all three teams, talking about where are they at right now. So the way I wanted to describe it is, or the way I wanted to ask you rather, is when someone just gives you the opening question of where are the Clippers right now? What's the era? What's the mode? What's the vibe? How would you go about answering that?
Well, there's actually been a lot of jokes about the whole vibe thing. The vibes are amazing. Right now, it seems like the Westbrook effect. Actually, I'm going to rephrase that. The Westbrook effect, when it's a real ideal situation that fits him, and a need for someone like that. But look, when you have LeBron on your team, you have the leadership, the vocal stuff taken care of. You have that kind of galvanizer guy that's gonna make a relationship with everyone on the team and be that kind of guy. And on the court, just control pace, do all those things. The Clippers, they really lacked a vocal guy, a vocal leader. Because as Terrence Mann just said when he was on Theo Pinson's podcast, he said, "My team is quiet. Someone needs to talk." And I think that's very well said. I think Westbrook coming in, he's added this life and energy that we didn't have last training camp. Kawhi's been talking more than ever before, according to all the beat writers and everything we're seeing on the Clippers social media. He's making jokes, he's smiling a lot more. I think he just feels better about his body going into this season. And I think that expectation that we had going into last season where everybody was like, Clippers are back fully healthy, Kawhi's back. They got one of the best chances to win the championship. I think everyone's kind of counting the Clippers out now and saying, they can't stay healthy. Westbrook's kind of past it. And I think that is what the Clippers actually need to have a really good season. So right now, I'm very optimistic. There's clearly a one weakness with the team is that our power forward spot is a little on the older side. We're talking about, is Kawhi going to start at the 4? Is Terrence Mann going to start there? And we're a little undersized, go smaller. But I think it's being a little over exaggerated. Positionless league. You're not going to have a perfect roster. I think the main thing that's kind of clouding everything is the James Harden rumors. It's like, are we going to do this? Are we not? I would love to just move on from this and start the season and see how our team is. And then if we really need something, we can explore. Now, whether that guy is James Harden, people that know me know how I feel about him. I wonder when his name's going to come up in conversation in our show. But let's just say right now, I want the team to stay the same. I like the way our roster is, and I'm feeling optimistic, but I'm not expecting anything from the Clippers because of the health.
Okay, cool. That's fair. For me, with the Clippers, it's interesting. Oh well, I think you've already answered this, but let me ask you formally: would you say this is the best era of Clippers basketball? We're in it right now.
Are you saying the Kawhi Paul era or the Staples Center era?
2022, 2020, 2023, 2024. Is this the best era of Clippers basketball right now? Are we in it right now? We're about to enter it with this season.
Uh, Probably not. I mean, I
Probably not.
think the
Okay.
best era of Clipper basketball at this point has to be Lob City. It was just
Okay.
consistently 50 wins plus. I think this if you give this current Paul George Kawhi era one more conference finals appearance, then you can say it's that. But yeah, the bar is not too high with the Clippers. But if you make it to the conference finals again, I'll give you the best era. But right now, definitely not better than Lob City.
Okay. So behind Lob City, and we'll see if they do enough to kind of put it in front. Okay, I think that's fair. Yeah, the Harden thing we'll leave it for later. Obviously, as more of a Clipper hater, I'm enjoying the the Harden banter there. But remember, if I remember correctly, you weren't exactly on board with the Westbrook thing either, and that I
Right.
think you would say kind of did work out at least last year, right? Like he gave it
Yeah.
wasn't his fault the things that resulted. He played really hard in the playoffs for y'all. I think he was one of the highlights. So maybe the Harden thing, if it does happen, maybe you'll actually turn around and be like, oh, you know what, this guy hustled for us.
Hustle
Different
for us.
environments do different things.
That maybe I mean he'd do a lot for us, but hustle. I don't know. I can't remember the last time I heard someone say good hustle, Harden. Like I can't remember the last time. With Russ though, he still has those moments where he's gonna put
Yeah.
on the passion and all that.
Yeah. With Russ, it was with the Lakers, it was a whole different thing. It was match, it was scheme, it was money. There's a lot of factors on why that didn't work. Versus again, the Clippers is a different situation, so it makes sense that it's a little bit more of a better fit. Financially, the role, what they need him to be, and what they're lacking. Again,
Right.
it's not always about the player. It's about fitting in with what else is around them. And I think with Russ there, yeah, it seems like it's working out pretty well, and there's not that much risk involved based on like the salary compensation and what he's being asked versus what he can do. It seems like it's something he can do. So for me and the Lakers, how would describe this era? It's interesting. Well, obviously it's the LeBron era, right? You talk about Lob City, PG, Kawhi. Right now we're in the LeBron era because anytime LeBron's on your team, it's the LeBron era. Period. And then it's just how you're going to describe that era. So we're definitely clearly in the LeBron era, and I would say, with the Lakers, there's just so much rich history. There's no way you would call this the best time because there's so many good times that, like, you would have to be like, running 4 or 5 championships in a dynasty to be the best time. But I'd say it's a good time. It's a time where right now the team's still incredibly relevant, incredibly good, and they just came off a Western Conference Finals appearance. They look like they've gotten better. And what I would warn people who are Laker fans now is one, appreciate it while it's here, and two, it may be over very soon. We don't know. We know he signed a 2-year deal. We know he's got a player option for next year. We know he's 39 years old. So, I mean, he's already defied all logic and, science at this point. But how much longer? Father Time is undefeated, and LeBron can push it off for as many years as he can, but eventually it's going to catch up. It's amazing he hasn't burnt out at this point already, but he's still there. But how much longer? And also himself, he's mentioned it for the first time ever last year. He's finally started to mention, hey, like this might actually end before like I'm done. So and he just like Kobe mentioned, I would love to ask LeBron, do you think it's better to burn out or fade away? Because Kobe was very clear, I'm not going to be a role player. When I can't be the guy, I'm done. I don't think LeBron's been asked that, and I'm not sure what his approach is going to be. Is he going to be a guy who plays when he's only dropping 12 coming off the bench, or is he going to say, no way, if I'm not a top 2 guy, I'm out of there. So I would say for Lakers Nation, enjoy it, appreciate it. It's the LeBron era. Is it going to result in another title? Obviously, I hope so. I'm not sure. No one knows, but they got a really good shot with the team they have. And that's what we're in right now. We're in the LeBron era. He's got another good shot, probably his second best chance, minus the time he actually won it, in 2020. And they have just about as good a chance as everybody, except for, of course, Denver Nuggets. They're the champs, so you got to give them their credit and put them in front. But after that, I can definitely make an argument they're 2 or 3, and they're definitely at worst top 4, and they're going to have something to say about who comes out of the West. They're going to play just as much of a factor as anybody. So that's kind of how I would describe the Lakers era. How would you describe it now? Kind of, since you're just as engaged in it as I am.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's tough when you have the bar set so high with the Lakers, with LeBron coming in. For most franchises, LeBron is the greatest thing they've ever seen and stuff. And you saw that first year when you guys didn't make the playoffs. there was a lot of slander. Like people were like, "Oh my God, this guy's everything I thought he was." Like, because if you recall, when Kobe retired, his final game, they had all the legends, on the jumbotron giving their tributes, and LeBron was the only person behind besides a Celtic player that got booed by the Laker fans. I mean, I had all my arguments with Laker fans growing up, arguing for LeBron against Kobe so
Hmm.
much. So I think that first season was rough. He redeemed himself tenfold by winning the championship. And AD, I mean, I think he won Laker fans over quickly. Like,
Hmm.
I think all the Laker fans I asked, they have differing opinions on who their favorite players on the team right now. A lot say Anthony Davis, some say LeBron. Some are saying Austin Reeves these days. He's building his cult following, but a lot of them will
He
say
is.
AD or LeBron. And I think that the bubble championship, that really redeemed LeBron in the eyes of a lot of Laker fans. And it's hard to find Laker fans unless they were more of Kobe fans than Laker fans that dislike the guy anymore. He is still put on for the Lakers in some tough times, especially the toughest time, which was Kobe's accident. And to win the championship in such an emotional year was huge for him. And having the relationship that he had with Kobe too, I think that really made him more endeared to the Laker fan base. But I also think this past playoffs was a great chance for LeBron and AD to kind of have more signature moments as Lakers because they never even, until game 3 against Memphis, they never even played in front of a sold out Laker crowd. I mean,
That's right.
can you believe that? This was their LeBron's 5th year with the team. Anthony Davis's 4th, and they didn't play in front of a sold out Laker crowd till game 3 against Memphis. So I think that in that way, they're starting to build their legacy as Lakers. Um, and I think you did get better. I echo everything you said, but as far as Laker eras, I'm not gonna like rank it or anything like that. It's tough to compete with. You have a conference finals appearance, a championship, and 2 years of not making the playoffs with LeBron, and then the 1 year where you got injured against Phoenix. So
Yeah,
this year will be big. I'm very interested to see how it goes. It's interesting to say now that LeBron has now played for the Lakers more years than he played with the Miami Heat. So
that's
this
right.
has been LeBron's second longest stop in his career, actually, besides his first tenure with the Cavs. So I think that's very interesting as well. And of course, breaking the scoring record in a Laker jersey, that's going to be one of those moments that you look back and Laker fans will say, man, he did that. Kareem and LeBron both did that in the Laker jersey.
That's right. Yeah, that was iconic. And yeah, I echo all your sentiments there. And I think the other thing too is LeBron mentioned it too. He said that like they asked him, I think after he won the title, like the next time at like media availability the next year, like, what have you learned so far being a Laker? Like it was like his third year or something. He said, what I've learned is Laker fans don't give a damn what you did before. You got to win in that jersey. Because he kind of was surprised by how much criticism he got. He's like, I've won 2 rings on 2 different teams. Like, what are we talking about? And they're like, we don't care. You got to do it in purple and gold. If you don't do it in purple and gold, trash, right? And that's the standard that fan base has. We don't care if you've won before. You win here or get out. And LA kind of has that mentality all across it. Dodgers, Kings, LA Galaxy, LAFC, the Rams. It was always like, if you don't win, we're gonna forget about you really quick because we want winners here. So you got to go win. And LeBron delivered that, like you said, in that year, in that 2020 championship. I think that definitely helped a lot. I think Kobe giving him the stamp of approval helped a lot, and people realize, hey, the only reason you hated him was because he's compared to your favorite. Like if you actually put that aside, I mean, come on, like we don't talk about how good LeBron is. It's very clearly he's one of the best. He's I always tell people he's competing with ghosts. His opponent is not Chris Paul or Paul George. His opponent is Shaq, Kobe, Michael Jordan. He's competing with legends. He's competing with his resume versus the historical resumes of NBA history. So he's on another playing field than just about every other player, minus a few like Giannis who are actually going for like, oh, iconic, historically good. So he's on that level. And that rubs people the wrong way because those are their heroes, and then they start getting in their feelings about it. But if you just take that away, I mean, come on. He's a sensational player. And like you said, he's been a leader. I remember that speech he gave when he threw that paper away and was like, I'm just going to speak from the heart about Kobe and stuff like that. I think that was a big moment. Like you said, getting the scoring title was a big moment, getting the championship. And like you said, last year, for all the people who want to throw cold water on that title and stuff, he's like, look, he didn't win it all, but he went out there on the road in Memphis, bodied them. Steph Curry stands, what do you have to say? He went out there, he got the win. He didn't make it all the way, but he made it all the way to the conference finals. So that really put a lot of cold water on people who were saying, "Oh yeah, but asterisk this, and he hasn't done any. What has he done in the jersey?" He's like, he took them just about as far as anyone else went besides the actual champion last year. And I think that greatly helped as well with his legacy and kind of what he's done in that jersey as a Laker for as long as he's done it.
You think what are your thoughts on the Clippers though from the outsider perspective? Because I give my thoughts on the Lakers, but what are you thinking about the Clippers? I mean, is it the same? Just like if they're healthy, they're good. If they're not, it's going to be a
I,
disaster.
I think they're going to be better than most people think. And I think they're going to be right in the mix. And I think if they're disciplined, and again, health is always a factor, I would not be shocked at all if you tell me at the end of the season, yeah, they're a top 14. I'm like, I definitely think they have the potential for that. They have the talent for that. And like you said, I think not having as many eyes on them is probably better for the Clippers. There isn't this hoopla. There isn't this Battle of LA conversation. There isn't that pressure. It kind of, like you said, it kind of feels like they've gotten forgotten, and people are just like, "Oh, Lakers, Giannis, Celtics, how good are the Warriors with CP3?" I'm not hearing as much chatter for the Clippers, and I think that's the best for them. Keep it
Yeah,
low key, keep it chill, rack up 50 wins, and then be healthy and let's go. And I think that's the best case scenario. They're right where they want to be. When they were the front runners and people were talking about it's their title to lose, that's not a situation you want a team that's never won to be in, because
right.
that's a level of pressure that's unrealistic. You cannot be the title favorite when you've never won the title and your team is just barely getting a star situated. You can't have that expectation. And again, it was a lot of people. It was the players. It was Pat Bev in the Las Vegas casino bragging. It was ESPN putting that it was their town, Kawhi town, all that stuff. It's not part of the game, but it's also part of the game because it becomes part of the game, right? And
Definitely.
even though they had success, that's all people remember. No, we thought you were going to win the whole thing. You didn't win it, failure. And that's how everything kind of went down. And that's kind of when you went viral that one time.
Yeah.
That's actually my first memory of you, was like seeing that video, and I was like, oh man, this guy he's losing it over here over this 3-1 deficit. But it was warranted. It was definitely a collapse. There was no excuse. The team was healthy and ready, and there are reasons why it happened, but it was still inexcusable for it to happen. But I think the Clippers are in a good spot right now. I think they're in a better spot than they were last year at this time. And it
I
would
agree.
not shock me at all. Like I said, if they're a top 14 with 50 wins, I think that's very realistic, barring injury, of course. All right, cool. So I wanted to get into a little bit of our favorite moments now, since again it's like an episode zero, so we can kind of just riff a little bit and again kind of get comfortable before we actually have the basketball that counts coming in. So for you, Dime, who is your favorite Clipper ever?
I don't even know the answer to this one half the time people ask me. But right now in 2023, this answer could be subject to change. I don't have a clear one,
Sure.
man. Not gonna lie. I'd have to say Blake Griffin. I think the Chris Paul was the one I liked the most at a certain time. Like, I don't think I've ever loved the Clipper like I loved CP when we had him, because I was, growing up, I was playing point guard all the time. So in my high school, in my late middle school days, just I guess it was 1 year of middle school, I was really going out there trying to do what CP did and, had his shoes and everything. But Blake Griffin is just he's my favorite because we drafted him. There was this feeling like I don't care how many times we fail with Blake, but I'm willing to fail with him until he retires, like the Jazz did with Malone or with Stockton, I should say, because Malone eventually ended up becoming a Laker, which we try to, we don't want to mention that, but
Yeah.
it's just, I was willing to ride with Blake till the very end, watching me get frustrated at him and remembering me getting frustrated at him at various times, but also the highs, the crazy dunks. I mean, Laker fans will remember how electric this guy was. It
Yeah.
felt like even though the beef between Clipper and Laker fans kind of started around Lob City, there was still a level of, you asked Laker fans, they still enjoyed watching Blake Griffin play because it was like you were going to see something ridiculous. And he never wanted to leave the Clippers. So the tiebreaker between him and Chris Paul is two things: him being drafted by the Clippers and him never wanting to leave the Clippers. We did him really dirty with that, and man, I think he's the best Clipper of all time by a smidge. It's arguable. There's no clear cut answer there, but I think he is, and I can't wait till his number goes up at the Intuit Dome, because we don't have any retired numbers, and Blake Griffin is absolutely deserving. There's no question about it. Who's your favorite Clipper of all time?
It's interesting because obviously I'm not as much of a Clipper fan as you at all. So, but when I think about the Clippers and I think about the ones that like I respect them, one I have a Blake Griffin story. So I saw him his rookie year. I was living in Chicago at the time, so I watched the Bull. I went to the Bulls Clippers game, and it was early in the season. It was probably like November. And the season starts in October, so he already was obviously making noise, but he wasn't like it wasn't solidified yet, and he was just a monster. It was the dunks he did, like the crowd. It was like almost a sold out crowd gasping, like just like it was ridiculous, and it was like a video game. It was like everyone else could barely jump, and he was like tomahawk slam. I still remember he did one from the baseline, and he dunked it so hard, like the ball went like the opposite direction. It was like, oh my god, it's like that can't be worth 2 points. It has to be like 5. That was like ridiculous, and he did that all night. He dropped like 24 or something, and he was just like head over heels athletic over everyone. Like, you don't have to watch basketball to know he was good. If you just watch 5 minutes, be like, oh, the guy who's jumping like like 0.5 times more than everyone, that's probably the most athletic guy on the court right now. So that was my Blake Griffin story. He was incredible that game. I'm pretty sure the Clippers won that one. And yeah, he was just like, he just jumped out to you right away. You were like, oh my God. And it's like, oh yeah, he's clearly going to be rookie of the year, clearly going to be like, like the Clippers just got themselves like an incredible player. And that's my favorite kind of moment with Blake. My favorite player, I think, honestly, probably Jamal Crawford, because when I think of Jamal, I think of him in the Clipper jersey.
Oh, I
He
love
played
that
for
you
so
said
many
that.
teams. He
I
played in so
love
many
that you
teams. But
said
when I picture, if you told me close your eyes and think of Jamal Crawford, what I think of is him in a Clipper jersey, and then probably second would be in a Bulls jersey. But I think of him in a Clipper jersey the most. And again, he's Mr. Six Man, killer crossover, offensive bucket. Great member of the media now that he's in his next phase of his career, and he's not like trolling or anything. He's just good at his job, and it's like I don't know anyone who doesn't like Jamal
right.
Crawford. He's a
Mhm.
great guy. He's just awesome to have in the NBA community. And when I think of him, I think of him in the Clipper jersey, and that's probably why that makes him my favorite Clipper kind of in history there.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm happy you said that because I remember thinking with Jamal when we got him, I was like, he's played for a lot of he's played for a lot of franchises, but I would love if he retires. People are like, when Jamal was on the Clippers, he was so good. And that's what it ended up
Yeah.
becoming. And he was older in his career. I thought you were gonna say like
Hmm.
Lamar Odom or Norm Nixon and troll me with like a dual Laker Clipper. Lamar Odom would have been a good
Yeah,
answer for
yeah, that
that.
would have been a good one. No, I was being honest. I was like, yeah, probably the one when I think of Clipper players that like I have fondness for, he's definitely one of them. Now, again, for the Lakers, I'll kick it off here. Kind of what you said, like, you love LeBron, you love Shaq, but like there's nothing like having homegrown. And we got one right here with Magic right here, and we got the other one right here with Kobe. And to me, that's always the great debate. Which one are you gonna pick? And for me today, I'm going with Kobe being Bryant. I think he's the best one. He's the one who embodied everything. He's the one I grew up with, right? I didn't grow up with Magic. I kind of came in at the tail end. So I appreciate and I do all my history work to like know more about him. But I didn't see him night in, night out. He wasn't my guy like that. I came in and like, oh, that's the guy. I'm like, okay, cool, right? Kobe, like he was like my older brother. He was like the guy like I idolized, and like he was older than me growing up, and I was seeing his success and his failures and rooting for it and all of that. So there's something special when it's like that, and you get like 20 years, and you go through all of it, and then his work ethic and the person he was. I think that's what really makes also Kobe special. Magic, you just know, oh, he's a great business guy, he's charismatic. But like if you're not a great business guy or charismatic, you're like, okay, well, I don't really relate to that. I don't have that $1 million smile. But Kobe, the thing that made Kobe special was, as you know, he gave you his heart and he gave you his effort. And he's like, I'm going to give it all every night for you. And then you thought in your life, I can give it my all every night for what I do, whether that's going to school, you're a mechanic, you're a painter, whatever, you can give it all. You can have that mama mentality in your life. It's not a special thing. It's just having a hard work ethic and giving your all to something that you love. And we can all do that. So I think that's why that Kobe resonates so much more. And then, of course, he's won the 5 rings. He did all of it. And I love how he was at the end of his career. We talk so much about these podcasts, especially off the podcast, about these guys act like they're so big and bad. And I would have dropped 60. And this generation, I would have. You'll never find a clip of Kobe bad mouthing Trae Young or bad mouthing this generation. He just loved basketball. And he's like, this is their story. I'm not going to comment on their story. I had my story. I had my moment. I dominated. I'm done. They're going on. And I love that he was like that. He could have been, Kobe could have jumped on that podcast and just talked crazy, right? Oh, I would have scored 80 on KD. He never badmouthed anybody. He's just like, I love the sport. I love the game. I want to share what I love about the game. And I want to be there supporting the new guys. He went to the gym with everyone, KD, Trae Young, Jason Tatum. Like he never had anything bad to say about anybody. He's just like, I love the game, and I hope the new gen does whatever they do, and I'm here to support them. And I think for all those reasons, that's why Kobe's my favorite Laker. How about you? Who's your favorite Laker?
Well, except the refs. I was gonna say there was one moment, I don't know if it was post-retirement or like his last year, and he was just like, yeah, he was just talking about the differences in officiating from when he was young and how much like more physical it was back then. And he was saying how like the flagrants make me nauseous these days. And I was just laughing so hard because it was dead serious. You know how Kobe was, like so dead
Mhm.
serious about it. But Kobe's by far the most influential sports figure of my life. Just growing up in LA during his prime, like there was not a day that went by that we didn't argue about him in some way. So, and everything you said about mama mentality and stuff, like weirdly, Kobe influenced the way I view basketball so much. Like that's why I'm so anti having someone like James Harden on the team because like if Kobe was your example, like he set the bar so high for me. But it's not just about his brilliance of how good he actually was. It's about what he stood for in terms of the way you compete. And I think that's something I've carried with me in life. Like there's certain things that Kobe preached and did. Most importantly, did. He didn't just talk, he did it.
Yeah.
And that's what resonated with me and takes me to having such strong takes about the level you need to reach to win championships, the seriousness, the not taking games off and risking playing through injury for the fans. Like Kobe was, I mean, sometimes people say he worked too hard, but we
Yeah.
respected him so much. So I'd say Kobe was the most influential, but he's my second favorite Laker. I mean, my channel is called Dime Dropper for a reason. I grew up as a pass first guy, and I truly, I mean, Magic Johnson, when it comes to watching every player, if I had to pick every single player to watch play basketball in my entire life, and I'd say I could only watch one player in every single game I watch, he has to be involved. Magic would be my choice. To me, he's my favorite Laker. Um, in terms of pure play style, he's my favorite basketball player of all time. Like just in terms of playing style, I think he's the most influential athlete in the city of LA ever. I think he
Mm.
changed everything about the Laker perception. I think he took them from a very good franchise to a global iconic franchise. The Lakers before Magic were not up there with the Celtics. They were up there losing to them in the finals in the 60s over and over. But when Magic came, you beat the Celtics twice out of 3 finals appearances. It was Lakers and Celtics and then the rest. He changed everything. I mean, the Forum Club, the Showtime is the no matter what anyone wants to say about the 3 rings that Kobe and Shaq won and the 5 rings of the Kobe era, there were a lot of lows in the 2000s. Those were not they
Mhm.
didn't exist like that in the 80s. I mean, okay, 81 there's a low, and you lose to Houston, but it's in between a title sandwich. You know what I'm saying? 80 and 82,
Right.
and you just kept on being successful. So for me, when you think of LA and you think of the Hollywood and the Flash and everything that's associated with the Laker brand, I think Magic Johnson is just the embodiment of it. Like he's Mr. Laker. Like to this day, he's so involved. He's so involved with the community in LA. He's a majority owner of the Dodgers, or Guggenheim is the majority owner, but he's part of
Right.
that. LAFC. I mean, he's just got his hands everywhere. Like he's just the magic man. I mean, that's my guy. It's my favorite. So like, if you follow me on Twitter and stuff, like you'll see I go to bat for Magic a lot. Like he is. He's so influential. Like my uncles are Laker fans. They had season tickets at the Forum. Um, Only for his last year when he came back though from HIV '96. But
Yeah, 96, that's right.
oh
Yeah.
man, they got to see him play, and like it's just different when you're able to talk about that time, the Forum Club, and what Magic meant to the people of Los Angeles. I think he has the biggest influence. But Kobe's right there with him. And as far as greatest Laker, as you said, it's take your pick. I always say it's 1A, 1B. They sit at the same throne. But I do
Yeah.
think for the city, I think Magic's impact was the craziest.
Yeah, you make an incredible argument for it. So yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a toss up, and I've flip flopped as well. Like on the right day, I'll say Magic. Most days, I'll say Kobe. But yeah, it's hard to argue. Both have like 2 decades in, 5 rings, and they were great advocates for the city and the team after. And obviously, Magic's still going, and Kobe's passed, so his story is kind of ended. But yeah, Magic's there's not too many people going to argue with that. Magic at worst is probably the second greatest Laker, and on the right day to the right person, he's definitely the first one. One thing we haven't actually talked about the Sparks here, so we should probably jump them in. Obviously, they're not playing right now, so we'll talk a lot less about them, in these first few months of the pod, and as we get into their season, we'll talk about them. But the Sparks and being in LA, also being in crypto. Let's just talk about your favorite Spark player. Let's jump on there and then we'll go from there. So for you, Dime, who's your favorite player who's ever played for the Sparks?
Man, I think play style wise, I had an affinity towards Candace Parker for a while because she was a point forward. But I gotta say, Lisa Leslie is my women's basketball goat. Like she was the first WNBA player I ever knew about. She was the star, what, two-time Finals MVP. I mean, was she two-time Finals MVP?
I believe so. Let me look it up. I'll got you.
Because that's my favorite. I mean, USC as well. My dad went to USC, so Lisa Leslie is my favorite. Currently, though, I have to say Jordan Canada. I went to elementary school and played summer camp with her, and
Oh,
so
really?
yeah. So it's no surprise to me that Jordan's and the WNBA and having all the success she had professional basketball player written all over her at age 9. Like she was that good. I want people to understand, like for these WNBA players that you insult and say, "Oh, they're not as good as the men," and this and that. Every kid used to talk trash in the playground at school. But when Jordan Cannon was on the court, they'd all shut up because they knew that she would bust them up if they said anything. That was the level of aura she had as a 9-year-old. So there's no secret why. So I have a fandom towards Jordan because she went to school with me, but Lisa Leslie is my goat. But how about you?
That's incredible. So what was your question here? I got Lisa's stats up here. What you want to know?
Two-time, two-time Finals MVP.
So she's got two titles. Let me see if she's two times Finals MVP. Yes. 0102 Finals MVP. Yeah, two times. You're right. So yeah,
Yeah,
for me, the answer is kind of funny because, like I said, I cover the team, and I've never said this publicly. It was the first time, but for me, it's Neka. Like it's Neka Gumake. She's been the face. She's been there the
yeah,
whole time. Her jersey's gonna hang in the rafters. She already has the title, and she's kind of going through like the in the era for the Sparks. It's kind of like a rebuild mode at this point, but I think they're gonna have a good chance this year. You know, they got their money's pretty open, and they have a top draft pick. I think they're gonna have another chance to go for it. And in the WNBA, there's a lot. It's not there's a lot of parity, but also if you get the right pieces, you can kind of jump up a little bit quicker than maybe in the NBA. Unless you get like a home run player like LeBron, it does take quite a few years to get up there. The WNBA can be a little faster if you make the right move for the right player. So I think the Sparks they have a good chance, depending on how this offseason goes, they can kind of be back in that mix right now. And yeah, I mean, Neka just had like a career year, 13th year in the league, and she arguably had one of her best years. And again, same thing. She embodies all the right things. She's the face of the franchise. She knows how to be a leader. She's incredibly intelligent. Every time I talk to Neka, I'm a better basketball observer from that conversation. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter
wow,
what she talks about. She gives you just like these gems, and you're like, oh, I never got that perspective. And you're a player at that level, so like I'm understanding it better just from you saying whatever you just said. And again, absolute bucket, absolute leader, has a title. And for me, that's my favorite because she's just been so good. And even through all this, she could have left. She's been a free agent every season. She could have easily left, jumped on one of those super teams. She could have went to Vegas. She could have went to New York. She could have went to Seattle. She could have went anywhere. Anyone in the WNBA would want Neka Gumake to be like their franchise player, and they would have paid her the money. Phoenix would have done it. Anyone would have done it. But she's kept opting in because she's like, this is home. This is where I'm at. Went to Stanford. I'm going to rep for this place. Only team I've played for. And yeah, she's killed it. So for me, that's my absolute favorite. Jordan Canada's amazing as well. As yeah, her handles are just ridiculous. Like she just got a crazy handle. Like when she puts someone on skates, it's always like wow. And yeah, she's gotten better every year. She's gotten her shot better, and she's a great defender. Yeah, Jordan Canada, she was up there for most improved this year based on how well she played. So she's been fantastic. All right, so let's jump into. We talked a little bit about crypto and our relationship with it. I want to know, as a Clippers fan, because I've never actually gone to a Clippers game, so I'm gonna have to fix that this year. But as a
really?
Clippers fan, I've never gone, never gone. No,
You got to go one time this season. Come on.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go. We'll work it out. We'll do a video. It'll be fun. But so I don't have an answer for this. But for you, as a Clippers fan, inside the stadium, inside crypto, what was your favorite moment?
It's not even close. I mean, you guys, Laker fans, know about more than anyone because you guys are the ones that were the leaders of the jokes for all these years. Conference finals virgins. Don't know what it's like to get out of the second round. Never made it out of the second round. Why don't you get out of the second round before you start talking? That night, we broke the curse. It felt like we were literally cursed, dude,
Yeah.
to beat Utah and the team that LA collectively can hate together. I mean, Stockton and Malone era, hated them. Darren Williams, Boozer era, Lakers used to whoop them. I think there was much more
Yeah,
bitterness towards the Malone era because they used to actually beat the Lakers. I can't
yeah.
stand them either. I can't. In this era, we've played them a good amount of times. To actually beat them and in the fashion in which we did, I always said it would take a Herculean effort for the Clippers to make it out of the second round. It would have to take something out of the ordinary. You're damn right it was. Terrence Mann, 39 points, and that's why he is such a beloved player for me. He's my favorite player on the Clippers, actually, because of that. Like, he really gave me that. And I'm forever indebted. And I know that sounds so lame for Laker fans, but like, again, if anybody should understand, though, it's Laker fans because you made it a point that we had never made it out of the second round and we were such losers for it. So the fact that we did, now we're joined by some other teams that don't have very good histories as well, like Minnesota, Sacramento Kings, that have never made it out of the conference finals. So now if you say, make it to the finals, like, all right, buddy, we're moving up. So that's my moment.
Yeah. No, that's a fair one. I remember that night. Yeah, I was like, oh my god, they're gonna win this thing. I'm like, I don't want to see them win this thing, but they're gonna have a good chance. And of course, you guys didn't, but you, like you said, it's baby steps. You took that just like the Lakers when Buzz said you can no longer say the Celtics have always beaten the Lakers. That sentence is eradicated. Same thing for y'all. We cannot say Western Conference Finals 0. We'll have to say 1. And at that point, saying 1 is lame, so it's dead. And as you know, you haven't heard that anymore because there's nothing to say. It's over. So yeah, that's a good moment. For me, from the Lakers' perspective, my favorite moment inside the stadium. Um, I'm trying to think of what my
Did you have to
favorite
be?
moment.
Oh, you have to be there for it for this?
Yeah. Be
Okay.
inside, yeah.
I was gonna say
So
Game 7 against Boston probably would be the best one the Lakers have
yeah,
had
I
this
wasn't
year,
in there.
right? Yeah.
I've watched. Fun fact: I watched. That's the game I've watched the most. As you know, I know you're a dime dropper. You do your history, so you rewatch games all the time. I rewatch games all the time, just in general. I try to rewatch every Laker game. Even I watch it live. I watch it after. But Game 7, 2010, I cannot tell you how many times I've watched it. It's dozens, easily. I watch it all the time. I watch it on a day when I'm happy. I watch it on a day when I'm sad. I watch it in the summer. I watch it in the fall. I watch it consistently on my birthday. It's what I do, especially since COVID happened and we weren't going out. I'm like, I'm eating at home. I put it on. My family just kind of peruses and watches. Then we do something else, like watch a movie. I watched it this year. I can tell you right now, breaking news. My birthday, I will turn on YouTube the Lakers Celtics 2010 game, and I'll eat it up every time. I love it. So that's definitely my favorite, like not being there, but being there. Honestly, I think it would be. I was there on the last night. The stadium was called Staples. And even though people were like laughing about why do you care? It's just a name. I'm like, it's more than just a name. It's the name. It's the original name of the stadium. It's where we made our memories, and it's an era dying. And being there and kind of seeing the end of it, getting the shirts that said, like the final game and like the commemorating the first time it was there, and seeing the presentation they did. For me, that was a special moment. 'Cause I'm like, it'll never be Staples again. We might still call it that and feel like it is, but that era is ending. So for me, it's kind of like a bittersweet melancholy thing. But seeing everyone kind of commemorate the ending of Staples and kind of thanking it for the memories. For me, that was one of my favorite moments inside the stadium. So for you, as not the most Laker fan out there, what's your favorite moment from the games you did go?
Oh, I got one. The best regular season games I've ever been to. There's two that stand above the rest. One was this past season, double overtime, Kings Clippers, the second highest scoring game in NBA history this past season. That was an
Oh
amazing game.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it was
that was
also
wild.
Westbrook's debut. So there's so much energy in the building that night. But my first one is the only other double overtime game I've been to, and it's a regular season game that every Laker fan remembers. The Sunday afternoon in the lockout season where Ron Artest wound up and gave James Harden one straight to the temple. That was such an amazing game because it looked like OKC had the game in the bag. You have Westbrook, Harden, KD, Pau Gasol, and Kobe Bryant, and the best season of Andrew Bynum, where he was the best center in the league, in my opinion, that year because Dwight had dealt with a lot of injuries. That was the back injury season. That game in the fourth quarter, dude, Kobe just went to another galaxy. Like it just classic. Like, this fourth quarter starts and he just starts making everything one-legged shots going to his left from three. Like it was insane. It was just insane, but it was very typical of Kobe Bryant to do these kind of
Yeah.
things. And yeah, Jordan Hill, that was when he first started coming onto the scene and guaranteeing his minutes going forward. But that's my moment for sure because I mean, can you beat a Kobe takeover, double overtime again? Even though I was at the top of the 300 section against KD, I mean, come on, that's something I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
my kids about.
Yeah, I know that's a great one to pull from. Yeah, that was incredible. Yeah, everyone knows that classic moment from our test. Yeah, and then it's funny you mentioned it as Harden because he might be joining the roster pretty soon, but we'll see what happens there. All right, so moving on to the Sparks inside the stadium. I've been fortunate enough. I've been to pretty much every Sparks game the last couple years. So for me, I think there've been so many good moments and so many bad ones. I would say, hmm, I'll say that I was at one of the games I think last year where I think NECA either tied her career high or topped it. And I think that was special because you can kind of see it slowly happening. It was like just like a COVID moment where you're like, oh, they got 15, they got 20, they got 28. Oh, I think we're doing something here. Like so, this is not a normal day. And I remember Trudell was on the call, and he did such a great job calling that game, like he does when he does call Laker games. He calls South Bay Laker games as well. So that one for me was a very special moment because you saw just NECA just cooking, and then getting up to those highs and leading the team to victory. That's my favorite Sparks one. We haven't talked actually about like how much you've gone to games and how many games you've been to. Like how many have you gone to, and do you have a favorite moment from the ones you've attended?
Dude, I'm very embarrassed to say this, but I have actually never been to a Sparks game.
Oh,
Never.
we
I
gotta fix
got it.
that. So you never been to
No, we
Sparks, I
are.
haven't been to Clippers. Yeah.
We no, we are fixing that this season. There's no excuses. I'm down to go. I'm actually a pretty big women's basketball advocate. I just have not made it an effort to go. So I got it. I'm gonna fix that.
Okay, what's your favorite Sparks memory just watching them on TV then?
Probably the championship that we won with Candace Parker because 2001 and 2002 I was too young. So the one we won with
Yeah.
Candace Parker was probably the one that sticks out for me.
Yeah. The 2016 one. Yeah, that's a good memory for sure. And okay, cool. We're just about going to wrap it up. But one thing I want to say before we kind of get into the final segment here is ideally this is kind of the flow for the podcast. Obviously, as we move on, it'll be mainly recapping the games that happened, and we're going to recap them in the order that they happened. So they'll be brief. One thing that me and Dime talked about, kind of talking to the audience right now, which is kind of weird, but one thing we talked about is we don't want it to be, oh, I only like the Lakers stuff, so here's the marker. Oh, I only like the Clippers stuff, here's the marker. I'm going to ignore the rest. We want it to be more like a soup than a quilt. It's not going to be segregated. It's just going to all kind of flow. And as it flows, you're going to get all the information. So it's going to be a mixture of it. And I think today we kind of showed a good balance of, yeah, it stays on one topic, but just for like a minute, and then it bounces to the other one. So we're going to generally be doing that, going literally by the calendar and saying, okay, last week's games starting Monday, Lakers played, Clippers played Tuesday, they both played Wednesday, yada, yada, going through that. And then after we recap those games, we'll go over the overarching theme. And that's going to depend based on what we want to talk about, what's happening. It might be about injuries. It might be about load management. It might be about who we think from both teams should be taking the last shot. Or there might be a problem happening with both teams that we're like, hey, this has been coming up. Like, let's break it down. Or maybe there's a huge Lakers thing. Like, I'm not going to put the bad luck out there, but let's just say, LeBron scores 82. So obviously we're going to talk about LeBron's 82-point game because that's historic and that's going to be the main topic. Or the Clippers do something like that, where like Kawhi's, scored 40 4 nights in a row, and we want to talk about why he's been so dominant, and that's going to kind of overtake the conversation after that. And then after that, we'll conclude just like we're going to conclude today, talking about upcoming games. So for us right now, there aren't that many upcoming games because we're going to do our actual season preview next week. So right now we're still in preseason. We have only a couple. We have the Clippers playing Tuesday, October 17th against Denver, and the Clippers playing Thursday, October 19th again against Denver. And the Lakers only have one preseason game left happening October 19th versus Phoenix. Dime, I haven't been as locked in with the Clippers and the preseason. How have they been approaching preseason, and how are they going to approach these last two games, being that they're playing the defending champs back-to-back games here?
Would be surprised to I'll be in attendance for both. Would be surprised if Kawhi and Paul George play second halves, even Westbrook as well. But first game, they started with Westbrook, Kawhi, Paul George, Zubats, and then everyone knows those four are going to start. It's about a matter of that fifth starter. Terrence Mann started that game. I'm all aboard the Terrence Mann starting train. Then the last game, they started Robert Covington at the four, and he got 4 steals and 2 blocks. They're saying on Tuesday night it's going to be Nicholas Batum that starts, but Nico has said he wants a reduced role this year around 20 to 25 minutes.
Mm.
So maybe even 15 to 20. So I don't think he's going to start just based off what he's asking. The big question mark is on Thursday. Does that mean Marcus Morris is going to start? Because every Clipper fan doesn't want Marcus Morris on the team anymore for the most part. When I say everyone, I say 90% plus. And it's not even a personal thing with Senior as much as it is Ty Lue just has an affinity towards him. It's very close to him. And last season, he played him when he was just clearly his legs had gone. He wasn't as good as other players that were playing less. Robert Covington, a lot of Laker fans ask me, why isn't he playing? Yeah, good question. I mean, he had 20 plus coaches decision DNPs last year. So that's what people are watching is that fifth starter. But if I had to say one thing for people to look at, if you want to look at Clippers preseason, Bones Highland looks awesome. And that's one thing to look forward to is having a young energizer off the bench. But yeah, that's all I got for that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's something I'll be keeping an eye on here, especially Denver, seeing how much they're going to take it seriously. Obviously, again, preseason. I mean, some people just say nothing matters until the end anyway, but I definitely have a different perspective. I'm like, well, it matters and it doesn't. Like everything and nothing matters, kind of like our lives, right? Like does today matter? No, but also it kind of does, and something could happen that makes it like really matter, good or bad, right? So that's kind of how I look at like preseason, just like the day-to-day general. It starts to accumulate and it starts to matter. So for me, preseason, two things mainly matter. One is trying to figure out, at least for the beginning, what the plan is. And like you said, Lakers are also thinking about that fifth starter. I'm thinking it's going to be Taurean Prince. I think that's what we'll get. And in the final preseason game, we might get the answer, which I think is Taurean Prince, but we'll see. They're going to play the Lakers. Darvin Ham already said they're going to play seriously for 3 quarters. Essentially, is what he said. He's like, we're going to play kind of like it's a regular game for 3 quarters, and then obviously that fourth quarter probably just rest everybody. And just like you said, LeBron hasn't played past the first half. AD only played past the first half once, and he stopped at the 6-minute mark of the third quarter in that game. Every other game, he's kind of stopped, which makes sense, right? Because, again, the main thing about preseason, especially for players like that, you already know Kawhi's good. You know Paul George is good. You know LeBron is good. You know AD's good. All you want them to do is get some of that rust off, get acclimated with your new teammates, and if you're healthy game one, it's a successful preseason. I always said, no matter what,
Right.
preseason training camp, if you get to game one and the injury report is empty or close to empty, you had a good preseason training camp because, hey, you got some work done and nobody's hurt. Perfect. Give me that over anything. And so far for both teams, they can pretty much say that. Jared Vanderbilt's dealing with a knee issue. We don't know how serious it is. But Jared Vanderbilt, no offense to him, he's like a eighth, ninth guy in the rotation. He's not the pivotal thing. It's okay. Like if that's who's hurt, okay, cool. All the other main guys are great. Same thing with the Clippers. So yeah, that's the main thing. And that's next time we talk, we'll be actually getting ready to preview the season. I have so many thoughts on that, but we're gonna keep that there. So once again, thank you so much. Episode 0. If you're watching this, you're definitely there at the beginning, as we're gonna absolutely explode with this podcast as we go on. But for tonight, that's it. We're done with episode 0. Episode 1, we're going to be talking about the big season preview, discussing everything, breaking it down, what our expectations are, what we think maybe the records are going to be in, and what that week's going to look like. So thank you so much for listening. I'm Edwin Garcia. This is Dime Dropper, and we're out.